Hi, I'm Deb McIntosh, host of Community Connections, and we are in studio in Castlegar at the Shaw Building, and we are thrilled to have Mayor Maria McFaddin with us today. Maria, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Huge change in council structure. More women than men.
Yes, it is quite a new era, isn't it? Yeah, there's 5 of us females and 2 gentlemen around the table.
Yeah, and only the second woman mayor in Castlegar?
It is, yeah. I'm very excited about that. I mean, to be honest, I care less about the gender of who's sitting in that seat and more about the quality of leadership they have. So on both fronts, I'm excited to be there. So yeah, it's good. Well,
we're excited for you as well. Big changes not only on council, but over the last 4 years. I think being a new councillor at the time and some other new ones, realizing that council is not a static thing, it changes and forever changes. I remember at the beginning, I came in and talked about housing, and it was no housing, not our mandate. And then, boom, all of a sudden, and that's how fast politics change and sway and dip and all of that stuff. So how did you find that? Did as a new councillor, was it surprising to you that it could change so fast?
Yes and no. Like I think my history, career, everything has been with people. And when you're dealing with people and any kind of organization, you have to be able to adapt. And so I think I went in there thinking, okay, I think I kind of understand what the mandate of a municipal government is and other levels of government, and knowing that some of that would shift, and it did. You know, you learn that they blend together, and it's figuring out what parts of the puzzle you can play in. And I think part of it's because if you learn that if we keep government like siloed, you'll often never get movement. Because it's really easy to say it's their problem and it's not ours. But at some point, it's like it's a problem and we need to make movement.
That's right. So municipal government is one of the most important jobs you can have, because it deals directly with the people on the ground where the problems are. And I think you guys have handled things really well. I think you were throwing some stuff that was a little bit, over the top, but you guys handled it well. As the new mayor now, you are the spokesperson, you're the lead role. Things are happening in town. We're seeing more and more things happening with people, vulnerable people. That's going to be a big challenge. You have 3 new councillors on board. It's really easy for people to say they'll do things during the election. Totally different when you're sitting at the table. Totally different. So how is it going to go forward in those conversations? Have you talked to some of them yet about the crisis facing every community in Canada?
Not much. Like we've just begun conversations really about what a council meeting look like, let alone anything else. I think they're all coming in there with different understandings of what that is. You know, some of them have experience and know what the procedures and processes are for municipal government. And to be honest, I think some still don't know totally what our role is. But I believe they all have a passion for Castlegar. And so I think it's going to take some time for them just to get their feet under them to understand what we can do and what we can't. You know, I think that's probably the hardest part of getting into municipal government is you can have these grandeur ideas and then you get there and you realize, actually, we can't do that. Like, this is against what we have any capability to do. And so when you're talking about this topic, I think it's extremely challenging. I don't think there's going to be simple solutions to this problem. But what I do know is it's making everyone work together. Like, how do we stop saying it's your problem, it's your problem, it's your problem, and realize it's collectively it's our problem. And we need to figure out how can we all work together. That goes with the new councillors and the councillors that have been there for a long time, the community, different community organizations that work in that field. Like, how do we figure out what part we can all play and not overstep and try and play other people's parts, but how do we figure out how to work together?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing is knowing your boundaries as to where your help is needed and where it's not, and taking over when it's not needed. And I think we all need to learn those roles, on an ongoing basis. So that's huge. One of the things I heard during the election was the concerns around Branson Park. Now, I know that you have spoke out publicly on this, saying that you stand by your decision and that it's good. And again, it goes to housing. Housing is so very important. And I personally think you guys did a great job on that. I know there's many out there that are still a little angry, but progress is progress. And are you guys going to make good on the new playground equipment?
Again, that isn't a decision I can answer. Why? Because I'm one vote of 7. Now, do I hope and bring a voice to the table that says, yes, like we said we were going to do this, we need to do this, and what does that look like? Absolutely. But where it lands isn't just up to me. It's a council decision. So I will continue to stand by my word, which is we need housing. And I'm hoping that through this, we can still have a tremendous park in a neighborhood, and maybe we can have both, or not maybe, I think we can have both. So I will do my very best to make sure that we hold to what the previous council decided to do. But at the end of the day, I'm one voice of 7, and we have to work together. So. And
I ask you this for a reason, is because I want people to understand that the mayor doesn't unilaterally get to make those decisions, and that every councillor has a voice, and oftentimes people say, well, just do it. Get it done. And it's not done that way. So I appreciate your honesty with that. Selkirk College, they just announced that they're going to build some housing. Again, housing was a huge issue during the election, and even with the housing, people are going to struggle, but what a tremendous boon to the area to have that.
Yeah, it was great. We were at the groundbreaking last Friday for it. It was like the first snowy, crazy day, and we did it outside. And but it was great. It was great to have Columbia Basin Trust there, and the college there, and provincial government representatives there, and City of Castlegar there, and it's all just celebrating that a win for one part is a win for all of us. Because like we know with housing, it isn't segregated, right? We don't need low income housing, or just affordable housing, or just student housing. It's any housing alleviates the stress on the whole. And so yeah, we're very excited that it's getting off the ground, that the ground is broken, and I don't totally remember when they're hoping to open, but they are on their way, which is great.
As long as it's in the making and moving ahead, which is wonderful. One of the questions I heard as well is boots on the ground. Is the city talking about, or will you be bringing forward, or maybe other councillors will be bringing forward, and making some new hires, especially out at Civic Works? I know for myself that the services that we got at Zuckerberg Island have been cut back, like no garbage pickup, and I can't call the guys just to come and help me with a certain thing anymore because there's just not enough to go around. Is that something that that you will bring up, or just introduce to council?
Yeah, so we noticed collectively that there was an issue with, I think it's a normal and a change in the community, right? We've had a lot of growth in the community. We've had a lot of different types of people moving in, including families which have a different need base. And so you've got this stretching of the organization, like the City of Castlegar is an organization, this stretching of that. And so I think we noticed that, okay, like we have to figure out some way to stretch, because you can't increase services and not increase personnel. But of course, every time you add someone, those are tax dollars. And so it's this complicated conversation about what is the solution. So we actually did hire someone to do a review for us to actually say, okay, what do we need? They went and talked to all of our staff from all different levels and said, okay, what are your needs? What's going on here? What are you seeing are the gaps? And so our decision making will be informed from that, from a third party that doesn't have their own ideas or their own pet projects, none of that. It's a third party that can say, what are the needs here, and how do you accomplish those needs? So we have hired a couple through that process, and the next stage will be like, okay, what's the next need, and figuring out what that is. Because boots on the ground is only as good as the instructions you can give them, like what is their actual job. And I think some of that, when the city has grown and changed so much, it's become challenging to know, okay, who's doing what, And that needs to shift. And I think sometimes organizations that have done the same things for so long, you hit this point where it's not the same organization anymore. It's not the same community anymore. So now you have to go, okay, does people's job description still fit what we need? Do the amount of people we have in different, if it's at Civic Works or if it's at City Hall or if it's at the airport, do all of these pieces still fit where those needs are in our community? And so we're having those conversations. I hope that we can make progress within the tension of knowing that every time we hire someone, these are tax dollars, and how do we do that well? How do we live in that tension well of getting what we need on the ground and still being respectful of taxpayers and where we're at with all the other needs that we have to provide for?
Well, if it means anything, as a taxpayer, I'd happily pay a bit more to get to maintain services, or at least bump them up a little bit, because I think it's really important that we don't only showcase once a year when the judges are coming to town for Communities in Bloom, but people take pride in their community year round, winter as well as summer, spring, fall, all of that stuff. So I think if brought to the public and explained in a way, I think most people, I mean, nobody wants to pay more, but certainly if you're getting bang for your buck.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
You know what's interesting on that? As I sat in, it was one of the housing committee meetings or housing strategy meetings I think we had. And we had about a dozen in my group of community members. And what came up is they're like, why don't we have an employee that's just dedicated towards housing? And I said because, okay, so this amount is what you'd pay that employee for full time. This is what it means as a tax one. And she's like, I'd absolutely pay it, no problem. This is what someone else in the group says, there's no way I want my taxes going towards that. Someone else in the group is like, well, I'd probably pay a portion of my taxes towards that. And that is the tension, right? As mayor and council, I mean, you know, you've been there, that you live in, is everyone's perspective on what they want is different. And so how do you let that inform the decisions you make and try and make something that's going to collectively be good for the whole? So yeah, back to the staffing, we're working on it. We're constantly trying to figure out what do the majority want, and how do we also still have every person's voice informing that decision, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, big balancing act for sure. Yeah. And I know that the city staff, Civic Works, and everyone really do a great job at what they do, and should be commended for that, because I know they take a lot of the heat when somebody's sidewalk or the roads aren't plowed right away. Bringing us into winter season.
Yes.
So that's always
And it came in with a bang, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah,
it did. So the first thing people always say is, where are the plows? Why aren't they sanding? You know, and there's a meme on there about one of the restaurants, you know, the guy that's salts the fries should be salting the streets, you know, and people want immediate response. And that takes money. Again, it comes down to, you know, what do you want to pay for, right? So heading into the winter season, you're going to be hearing as mayor a lot of the complaints and the concerns and stuff. And what can you tell people to make them understand that the city guys are on it? It takes time. You know, there's several kilometers of roads and sidewalks and all that stuff to do. So messaging is important, and you, Maria, are very good at messaging. You're very comfortable talking to people, and you're authentic. And I think that if those messages could get out there, I think that would bring the heat down a little bit.
Yeah. So when you come to like something simple as like snow plowing, it's not simple, right? It's this complex mix of how do you have enough staff and enough equipment to do what you need to do consistently, but weather is weather. And so when you get snow that's going for 48, 72 hours, it's going for days, well, often you don't have the people and the plows to make sure that everything is getting cleared every couple hours. Why? Because that only lasts like 4 days. So if you have enough equipment and enough staff to do that for those 4 or 5 days, that means those people might be sitting for now 3 weeks doing nothing because you don't have enough stuff for them to do the rest of the time. And so it is this tension of like realizing how much do you need to make sure that you're doing your job. So when it comes to snow plowing and all of that, what people need to know is it is all priority based. And so there's areas in the city that are hard to get to or need emergency services or different things like that. So it is priority based. That all can be found on the website of, okay, what top priority. And so unfortunately, if you're living in a neighborhood that's only got a few houses, that's flat streets, you're probably pretty low on the priority list. Not because we don't care about you. It's just that, when you're talking about needing to get to where you need to get to, you're looking at the bulk of the people. So when you get those big those snowfalls, that you're really looking at that. You're looking, okay, if I'm off on a side street that's really flat, that only has a few houses, I'm probably going to be pretty low on the priority list, and they'll get to me when they get to me. And it's not because we don't care. It's just because we only have so much stuff. And if you get more stuff, you're going to have to pay for that more stuff. And you don't need it most of the time. You need it for like 4 days. And so it's a tension that, everyone's going to have to live with. And all I can say is, I'm sorry. If I could come out and plow your road, I would, but I can't. So
yeah, she cannot.
I cannot.
Just so everyone hears that, she cannot.
Yeah, can't.
Yeah. One of the things that people are talking about as well is the new gallery, the potential moving and building of the new gallery and the housing units behind that. But the gallery, when you guys had the discussion, of course with the gallery, it's been going on for a long time. How was it that the city and Columbia Basin Trust and the gallery got together and to make the decision to purchase? Like that had to be a long conversation and weigh the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that stuff. I mean, it's certainly going to enhance the downtown. And I don't know that many that are not thrilled about it. But how do you balance that with the public saying, well, why are you spending your money there? Why are you focusing on that versus the pothole, at the bottom of Sherbrooke that's been there for months,
Yeah, for sure. So I would say even going through the election 4 years ago, not this one, but the one 4 years ago, there were a couple topics that were the hot button things. One was housing, the airport, obviously, and our downtown. And what are you going to do about our downtown? And I think it's something we've talked about for years. And so I think when we sat around the table, it's like, what do we have control over? We can't force businesses to move downtown. We can't force business owners who own buildings to do things to their buildings. And sometimes they want to and just don't have the funding to. We can't do any of that. So what can we do? And so out of the downtown area plan that we did came some of these ideas of, well, you can purchase, you can help people relocate, you can get housing downtown, you can do these things. And so I think when we started looking at that, we're like, okay, the art gallery wants to get down there. If they get down there, that's going to draw people, that's going to draw traffic and tourism and all that stuff, which then helps all the business community. The business community is thriving, of course, then a community starts to thrive as well. So it was like this, okay, if we could do this, all of these things will follow. And so how do we do this? So how do we get the art gallery downtown? How do we help that? The other thing, most people who lived in town, this building that we purchased has been there. It's been decrepit. It's needed fixing up for years. It's been like that for decades, and so it's sitting there. You can't force someone to do something with it. So when the proposal came of, okay, maybe there's an option from a few of us councillors, we started talking about maybe there's this option to purchase it. And can we do that isn't going to be a big burden? And how do we do that? So then that started the conversation with Columbia Basin Trust and the art gallery and saying, okay, is this something that's doable? And it kind of just spun off from there. And now I'm super excited. I think their plan is to break ground next year. And so they've got all the partnerships. We've got the housing partnership, and they're just figuring out what exactly their needs are, and they're raising their funds. And so I think it's going to be a great anchoring part for downtown. And I think it's really going to be great for the community, right? It's this space. They do such a good job at wanting to bring people together and get them to connect around art, but they can only do so much where they're at right now. And so the space will give them that opportunity to have kids and family and seniors and all of the people there to really connect around something that I think we can all connect around, which is this idea of creative arts and seeing beauty in things. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great idea. I can't wait for the new build.
Yeah, me too.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're very, very much event-based and bringing people downtown. And I know we're looking forward to working with them downtown as well. So the other question I want to ask is that when you gave your inaugural speech, you talked about respecting everyone and giving them space to talk. It was a squeaker of an election. Like that was tight.
So close.
Yeah. But you know what? At the end of the day, it could be 1 million votes. You won.
Yeah.
And how are you going to be different? How are you going to set yourself apart from other mayors, or are you going to? You have your own style, and you're very comfortable and direct, and I want to know how that's going to look as a taxpayer. How am I going to be able to approach you and discuss? Tell us how you're going to handle that.
Absolutely. I am my own style. As you can see, my feet don't touch the ground, right? Even that. Like I am me. And I made a decision a long time ago in all the hats that I wear that I don't have the energy to be anything but me. And so I would like to say, and I think if you ask anyone who knows me, I'm not easily offended. And so I'm really okay with whatever someone wants to ask, whatever they're upset about, I'm okay with that. And I'll be direct back. You know, what I know I can have impact on, I'll tell you, yeah, I can probably do something about that. And the things I can't, I'll be honest about that too. And I said at my inaugurational speech, and I mean it, is that my goal is to listen. I don't care what member of the community you are. I want to hear. I want to hear what's important to you. And my commitment is that I will allow that to inform every decision that I make around the council table. I do not promise to vote the same way. I don't promise that I'm going to always agree, but what I do promise is that will influence how I make my decisions. And I think that's the only thing we can hope for out of a leader, because the reality is a community is built up of a whole bunch of people who have a whole bunch of thoughts and ideas, and none of us agree on everything. And so I think that what we can hope for out of a leader is someone who's saying, hey, I will do my very best to take everything that you're saying and weigh that when I make a decision for the whole. And so that's my commitment. It's actually the only commitment I'm making, because I know that there's a lot of things that I can have the best intentions, and that doesn't mean that they're going to happen, because we're all working together. And the last thing I would say on that is my slogan for the next 4 years, I've actually put it on the bottom of my emails because it reminds me, is that I really believe we're better together. I think we're better when we can actually figure out how to listen to each other and work together, whether or not we agree or disagree. And so that's my hope with regional stuff, with individual community groups, within council, within the city staff, within community members, that we can learn to work and be better together.
Well, I'm certainly excited about your refreshing attitude, your openness to discuss, and the more I get to know you, the more I adore you. You're going to be great. And politics, I get very emotional with politics, and I think you're going to lead the city in good directions. I think you have a strong council. I think the new ones are going to step up really well. And I wish you all the luck in the world. Thank you for leading us and hopefully pulling us all together for the common good of the city. And yeah, I look forward to having other chats with you.
Thanks, Deb. Thank you for all you do. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.